all families. And the other factors that we need to take into consideration when we think about increased risk for certain population groups are things like, as I said earlier, health insurance coverage, also unreliable transportation. If you need to get to work and you have to take public transportation, your risk is going to be increased because of the exposure to the public. Also things like stigmatizing language, medical practices, and materials. I don't know how many people have the experience of interacting with healthcare providers in a way that you felt put off, or that they weren't really speaking in a culturally sensitive way. And also access to medical resources. This is becoming a big problem as we think about vaccine distribution. There are some communities that have easy access, let's say to pharmacies, and then there are other communities that do not. So these are all factors that come into play as we are thinking about reducing COVID-19 disparities and increasing access to the vaccine. So I also want to take, again, just a few minutes to talk to you about CDC's COVID-19 strategy. And so last spring, when it was becoming clear that communities of color, people experiencing homelessness, people who are just people with disabilities, those population groups were bearing a bigger burden of COVID-19. And so we created a strategy that was actually released last July. And I just wanted to give you a quick look at our thinking, and it's at a very high level, where we understood that COVID-19 could contribute to exacerbating already existing health and inequities. We have observed that many people lost their jobs because of COVID-19, and they may already have been in positions that did not provide appropriate benefits to help to protect them. We also have seen our data, as I mentioned earlier, showing that these population groups and others have had a higher burden of this disease, and that we understand that effective public health intervention planning has to account for particular and unique circumstances that communities are in. And so, again, just at a very high level, this is our strategy. We have 4. The first one is around expanding the evidence base, and we really have focused on increasing our completeness of data around race and ethnicity, and other factors that are driving this disease. We've tried to expand programs and practices to reach populations at increased risk, with the opportunity for increased testing, to help people understand contact tracing, to increase access to health care. And also early on, we wanted to do a lot more education about the vaccine, not anticipating that we would have one as soon as we do. So we're trying to get ahead of the curve in terms of really getting information out to people and increasing their access to testing. We also have had a focus on essential workers, and this is another, I think, term that we hear a lot, essential and frontline workers. Typically, we're talking about our healthcare providers, people who are in hospitals, physicians who are seeing patients, people who work in nursing homes and are providing care to our elders. But also among essential workers are grocery store workers, restaurant workers, any group of food service delivery worker. This includes construction workers and people who drive public transportation. Those are all categories of essential workers. And these have been the people who have allowed us to function as well as we have been able to, over the last 9 months or so. So we want to be sure that they are protected. And then our fourth strategy is really more one that initially we focused internally at CDC, where we wanted to be sure that all of the 2,000 workers that I mentioned earlier, that they represent the diversity of our nation. And we have a diverse workforce here at CDC, and we wanted to make sure that people who were making decisions about the response also had a variety of social experiences and backgrounds, as well as whatever their professional backgrounds were, so that we knew that we're being responsive to communities. So I'm going to move on and just talk a little bit about what we call vaccine confidence and how we're really trying to enhance that in our work with racial and ethnic minority communities. And so I know you all have heard a lot of talk initially about vaccine hesitancy. And so we thought instead of that one of the ways, I should say, that we wanted to address vaccine hesitancy is by building vaccine confidence, which is a multifaceted concept, and it's based largely on trust. So vaccine confidence is the trust that patients, parents, or providers have in recommended vaccines. We also have trust and need to have trust and confidence in the providers who administer the vaccines, and possesses policies and processes that lead to vaccine development, licensure, manufacturing, recommendations, or authorization for use. So we need to trust that process as well. And so I wanted to give you just a quick update of kind of where we are with our vaccine administration. And you can see that as of February the 9th, which was just this week, over 62 million doses have been delivered, and over 43 million doses have been administered, and over 32 million people have received one or more doses, and over 9 million have received the recommended 2 doses. And there has been a lot of discussion again, over the past months, about how to prioritize and how to distribute the vaccines when they came available. And the decisions were made to create a phased approach. And you'll see here that the first phase was healthcare personnel and people who worked in long-term care facilities, as well as the residents. And in phase 2, it was the frontline essential workers, and these included people who worked in long-term care facilities, because our elders are especially vulnerable, and also to be sure to vaccinate persons who are aged 75 years and older. And then phase 1C is, and we're continuing to move through these phases. We have persons aged 65 to 74, persons aged 16 to 64 years with high-risk conditions, and then essential workers not recommended in phase 1B. And so those high-risk conditions include things like if you have diabetes, if you have obesity, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. There are a number of chronic conditions that when people have those, it puts them at increased risk for COVID-19. And so there's a very important committee called the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices. And in making the decisions about the distribution of the vaccines, they were guided by these principles. And they were the efficient distribution, as well as jurisdictional flexibility for the COVID-19 vaccination program. And so during a pandemic, efficient, expeditious, and equitable distribution and administration of approved vaccine is critical. And within national guidelines, state and local jurisdictions have flexibility to administer vaccine based on local epidemiology and demand. And so basically what that's saying is that ultimately the decisions are made at the local level about which parts of the community are most at risk and most in need of receiving the vaccine. And there is that flexibility. I think that local health departments are demonstrating as well as in consultation with local governments. So there are 2 vaccines that are currently available, and they have received emergency use authorizations, or what we call EUAs, from the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. One produced by Pfizer and the BioNTech, and the other produced by Moderna. So the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine is authorized for persons aged 16 years and older, while the Moderna vaccine is authorized for persons aged 18 years and older. And the manufacturers reported that phase 3 trial results demonstrated that both vaccines were approximately 95% effective at preventing COVID-19 disease. And both vaccines are administered with a 2-dose schedule, separated by a few weeks. So both vaccines were tested in diverse adult populations, including minorities and older adults. And data from the clinical trial show that both vaccines are safe and effective at preventing COVID-19. It is currently, though, unknown how long the protection from receiving a COVID-19 might last. A COVID-19 vaccine, might last. But scientists are actively collecting data about how COVID vaccines work in real-world conditions. And as data on vaccine effectiveness becomes available, CDC will provide regular updates with that information. So in terms of the fast tracking of COVID-19 vaccines while ensuring safety, as I said earlier, when we were first involved with the response last summer, we were expecting that it would be a year, at least, before we had a vaccine. But we've been able to get them much more quickly. And so we realized that you may have concerns about the safety of these first COVID-19 vaccines because they use new technology. So these or messenger RNA COVID-19 vaccines were developed actually based on years of research. And while mRNA technology is new, it is not unknown. And so mRNA technology has been studied for decades in vaccine trials for influenza, for Zika. If you all remember, a few years ago, we had a Zika outbreak, and also rabies. And beyond vaccines, cancer research has also used mRNA to trigger the immune system to target specific cancer cells. So we were able to fast track these vaccines because researchers used existing clinical trial networks, like those that study HIV treatments and vaccines, to quickly conduct COVID-19 vaccine trials. Another critical piece has been the investment in manufacturing, even before COVID-19 vaccines were proven effective. The US government and vaccine manufacturers invested millions of dollars to scale up vaccine production while clinical trials were in progress. greatly reducing the amount of time between vaccine authorization and vaccine implementation. And so because of the great financial risk, the investment in manufacturing normally doesn't happen until later in the development process. So when we think about mRNA vaccines are also faster and cheaper to produce because they use ready-made materials. And the last bullet I'll mention is that the FDA and CDC are working quickly to prioritize review and approval of COVID-19 vaccines during the pandemic. So there are more in production. So what are messenger RNA vaccines? So to trigger an immune response, many vaccines put a weakened or inactivated germ into our bodies, but that is not how the mRNA vaccines work. Instead, they teach our cells how to make a harmless piece of what is called the spike protein. And the spike protein is found on the surface of SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19. This protein piece serves as an antigen to trigger an immune response inside our bodies. And that immune response, which produces antibodies, is what protects us from getting infected when the real virus enters our bodies. So like all vaccines, COVID-19 mRNA vaccines have been rigorously tested for safety before being authorized for use in the United States. mRNA technology, as I said before, is new, but it's not unknown, and they have been studied for more than a decade. And mRNA vaccines do not, and this is important, they do not contain a live virus and do not carry a risk of causing disease in the vaccinated person. mRNA from the vaccine never enters, this is also important, the nucleus of the cell and does not affect or interact with a person's DNA. And I know there's been all kind of talk and misinformation about like how this mRNA vaccine works, but this is actually how it works. So as I am concluding, I want to just address some of the key facts about COVID-19 vaccination and some of the common myths that are circulating. So number one, getting vaccinated can help prevent getting sick with COVID-19. That's really important. As we have seen that particularly African Americans have had 5 times the rate of hospitalizations due to severe illness from COVID-19. So COVID-19 vaccination works, as I said before, by teaching your immune system how to recognize and fight the virus that causes COVID-19, and this protects you from getting sick with COVID-19. Number two, people who have gotten sick with COVID-19 may still benefit from getting vaccinated. That was another thing that I know I've heard among my friends. They said, well, if I've already had it, do I need to get the vaccine? Yes. So due to the severe health risk associated with COVID-19 and the fact that reinfection with COVID-19 is possible, you can get it more than once. Vaccine should be offered to you regardless of whether you already had a COVID-19 infection. And at this time, experts don't know how long someone is protected from getting sick again after recovering from COVID-19. And then thirdly, COVID-19 vaccines will not give you COVID-19. So none of the authorized and recommended COVID-19 vaccines or COVID-19 vaccines currently in development in the United States contain the live virus. None of them contain the live virus that causes COVID-19. So this means that a COVID-19 vaccine cannot make you sick with COVID-19. And number 4, COVID-19 vaccines will not cause you to test positive on COVID-19 viral tests. So neither the recently authorized and recommended vaccines nor the other COVID-19 vaccines currently in clinical trials in the United States can cause you to test positive on viral tests, which are used to see if you have a current infection. So if your body develops an immune response, the goal of vaccination, there is a possibility you may test positive on some antibody tests, but not on the infection tests. So antibody tests indicate you had a previous infection and that you may have some level of protection against the virus. So experts are currently looking at how COVID-19 vaccination may affect antibody testing results. So we're still learning about that. So the safety of these vaccines is our top priority. COVID-19 vaccines are being held to the same safety standards as other routine vaccines. Several expert and independent groups evaluate the safety of vaccines being given to people in the United States, and this is an ongoing process. Also, before any vaccines receive authorization or approval, the Food and Drug Administration carefully reviews all the safety data from clinical trials. And the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, that group that I mentioned earlier, which we also refer to as the ACIP, is an independent body of experts, and they review all safety data before recommending use. And so the FDA and the ACIP have qualified scientific and clinical experts with minimal conflicts of interest reviewing all of the data. So after any vaccines are authorized and in use, both FDA and CDC continue to monitor their safety. And existing systems can rapidly detect possible vaccine safety problems. These systems are being scaled up for COVID-19 vaccine introduction to fully meet the needs of the nation. And additional systems and data sources are also being developed to further enhance safety monitoring capabilities. And there are systems in place that allow CDC and FDA to watch for safety issues, such as the CDC V-Safe. And this is a new smartphone-based after vaccination health checker for people who receive COVID-19 vaccines. CDC and the FDA have also worked together to create a national system that collects reports from healthcare professionals, from vaccine manufacturers, and the public of adverse events that happen after vaccination. So VAERS also collects reports of adverse events. So let me see. So this is what I want to move on to, which is what to expect before, during, and after you receive your COVID-19 vaccination. So before getting vaccinated, you should learn as much as you can about the different types of COVID-19 vaccines and how they work. And I really want to just congratulate, applaud, thank Bishop Jackson for his leadership in making this program available to you as part of the education process that's going to be really important in terms when you go to make a decision about accepting the vaccine. And during your vaccination appointment, you should receive a paper or electronic version of a fact sheet. And this fact sheet is specific to the COVID-19 vaccine that you are being offered, that contains information to help you understand the risk and the benefits of receiving that specific vaccine. After you are vaccinated, you should be given a vaccination record card that tells you what COVID-19 vaccine you received, the date you received it, and where you received it. And it's critical that you hold on to that card. Because when you come back for the second dose, they're going to ask you, well, which did you receive first? So your provider may also give you information about how to enroll in vSafe, which I mentioned just a minute ago, which is the smartphone-based tool that uses text messaging and web surveys to provide personalized health check-ins after you receive a COVID-19 vaccination. So you're not like on your own once you receive the vaccination. There will be ongoing monitoring. And so this program, vSafe, also helps CDC monitor safety of this vaccine. And so it's important to continue using all the tools available to help stop this pandemic. So we don't want you to forget about what you've been hearing about probably for the last 6 months, which are things like cover your mouth and nose with a mask when you're around other people. Stay at least 6 feet from others. Avoid crowds. Avoid poorly ventilated spaces, and wash your hands often. I know we've heard that repeatedly. And so vaccination is one measure to help stop the pandemic. And it's an important tool that we now have available to us. And while the COVID-19 mRNA vaccines appear to be highly effective, additional preventive tools remain important to limit the spread of COVID-19. And so the combination of getting vaccinated and following CDC's recommendations about how to protect yourself and others will also continue to help us recover from the COVID-19 pandemic and move away from this experience that we've been having. So you know the strategies already, and it will take time as we're learning to vaccinate all people living in the United States. But while the vaccines are being
technology here. All right, my brothers and sisters, we're having a little technical difficulty here. Okay. Brothers and sisters, we've lost connection there, unfortunately. But I'm happy to have with us this morning Dr. Matthew Watley, who preached to us last night, gave us an awesome word. And Dr. Watley has been instrumental in the issue of blacks and vaccinations. And he arranged for a meeting with the Council of Bishops and some leaders in the vaccination effort, and a wonderful presentation. And I just thought it would be a blessing to us to have him come and make a presentation this morning. And his schedule is so busy. In fact, he's got another Zoom presentation he had to do at 12 o'clock today for the 2nd District, and I don't want to make him late for that. So I'm happy to present the Reverend Matthew Watley. I'm preparing to start calling him doctor because he's finishing up his work on his PhD, but happy to present Dr. Matthew Watley. Come and make his presentation to us this morning. Give him a hand.
Thank you, Bishop, and again, greetings to the 6th District, and it's always good to be home. And again, Bishop, I want to thank you for the invitation to come and share and for your leadership. I think it is important that, let me just say this up front, that the district notes his leadership in providing us the opportunity to be here in person. And that's important because understand, nobody is going to go from quarantining from over a year to back in church overnight. We're not going to go from scared to touch each other to back in church, no mask, sitting on top of each other like we used to. Mm-hmm. So this is modeling for us the transition that every church is going to have to go through. And so it's important that we take advantage of the opportunity to demonstrate for ourselves that it can work and that it's safe. And I think you're the only bishop doing it. And I think that deserves support. It's always easy to stand in a crowd. If they don't impeach him, it'll be because nobody wanted to stand by themselves. stand away from the crowd. All right. So I'm appreciative of your leadership.
Thank you.
It is consistent with what I've known. I can say it now, down through the years. Are we able to run anything, or is the network messed up on that too? We're good? Okay. So this is my meager presentation, and if you'd like a copy of it, if you just take your phone and text the word leadership to 313131. Text the word leadership to 313131, and you'll get a copy of this presentation. All right. In fact, if you'd like a free copy of my latest book, you can also text the word Ignite 2020 to 3131, and you'll get a free download of my latest book. All right. The first one, this presentation, text the word leadership to 313131, and if you'd like a downloadable copy of my book, you can text the words Ignite 2020. Ignite, IGNITE 2020. All right. Good to see so many friends and colleagues down through the years. We've grown older together, wider together, grayer together. We're just glad to still be here. Amen. All right. Want to talk about saving lives while saving souls. Saving lives while saving souls. Several months ago, it became clear to me that we were heading as an African American people into a very difficult season based on what we were seeing in terms of African American hesitancy, as well as African American mortality rates because of African American comorbidity rates. Basically, black folks have been sicker than others for a long time, given less adequate health care for a long time. Therefore, we're most predisposed to have negative impacts from COVID-19. But because of medical racism, we also are least trustful of the medical intervention called vaccination. So it really is a perfect storm. And so I and a number of others have been working assiduously to try to inform our community about the vaccines. The presentation that you just saw today is one of many. So I'm not going to give you much more about why you should take the vaccine. I pray by now you got it. But let me arm you with some arguments that I think may be helpful as you are trying to persuade others to take the vaccine. Now, let me say this. Hesitancy around the vaccine is no respecter of persons. I don't care whether you have a PhD or a GED or no D. We all start with the same place, Tuskegee, Trump, I don't trust it. Am I right about it? Yeah. And so I've had to have this conversation with family members, colleagues, all over. And so here's some of the common myths that I've come across. Myth number one, this vaccine came out of nowhere, right? That's just not true. When you, later on in the presentation, you'll see a link to a Vimeo link where we provided a number of videos that explained to you, and the sister from the CDC also talked about it. Basically, there are 24 viral categories of SARS, and they know about them all. They've been working on them for years. So this was not new or unknown. And what they've done is they've developed the vaccines, but it makes no sense to start developing billions of doses of vaccines because you don't know which virus is going to transfer from the animal population to the human population. So when in China, it went from a bat to a human, and it started manifesting in people, they were able to quickly identify which of the 24 it was, and they started working to manufacture the vaccines. Now, what they did was they actually started manufacturing the the vaccines at the same time that they were running them through the trials, all right? And so there is a process. It has to still go through the same process. You heard her referring to an independent body. The standard that was used is the highest standard in the world. It's called a double-blind placebo trial, which means the pharmaceutical company is not controlling it, and the government is not controlling it. A third-party independent group gets all of the results of the data, and then once they sift the data and certify the data, then they share that with the pharmacies and they share that with the government, all right? And a double-blind placebo means that part of the group that does the trial, they don't even get the vaccine, they get the placebo to make sure that whatever changes happen from the vaccine can be documented and it's not just coincidence, all right? So this is the highest standard, and it's been worked on for over 10 years, all right? So that's just, it just came out of nowhere. That just ain't true, all right? Number two, is it safer to wait and, it is safer to wait and see how others react to it. Anybody heard that one? Anybody said that one? I'm gonna wait and see. Question, how long you gonna wait? There are more than 50 million people around the world who've already received the vaccine. How long you gonna wait? Let me ask it this way. Do you recognize that every day you wait that you could get the vaccine means that that's a day that you're putting yourself and your family at risk? Right? So that's the equivalent of being on the Titanic post-iceberg and deciding you want to see how the first few life rafts work. Well, I don't know, I don't know where those life rafts came from. I don't care where the life rafts came from. This sucker is going down. That much we know. So since I know I can't stay on this boat, that boat has got to at least give me a better chance than this one. I'm not a doctor, I'm a preacher, so I ain't got no scientific, but I can argue, all right? So that ain't true. And as people of faith, we have to ask a moral question. Is it morally acceptable to say, I want to wait and use others as a guinea pig? Is that something Jesus would endorse? All right. Myth number 3, we cannot trust the vaccine, they created it. Right? Anybody heard of Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett? Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett, show of hands. I know we can't touch, but I can at least see y'all. Okay, great. One of the videos, several of the videos that you'll see in that Vimeo link features Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett. She is a researcher at the National Institute of Health. As you might be able to tell by her name, she's a sister from North Carolina. And she was one of the founding patent holders on the vaccine. 5 of the 6 vaccines are hers. All right? And then the National Medical Association. Now, y'all know when it comes to the naming organizations, anytime it's American, that's white. Anytime it's national, it's black. American Medical Association, that's white. National Medical Association, that's us. All right? The National Medical Association has endorsed the vaccines. The Black doctors have endorsed the vaccines. The Black Nurses Association has endorsed the black vaccines. We have 4 medical HBCUs. All 4 of them are conducting trials for the vaccines that are still on the way. So when we say we don't want to trust their vaccine, it ain't their vaccine. So the question is not, do we trust them? The question is, do we trust us? All right? Boosting your, this is one of my favorites. Boosting your immune system will keep you safe. Listen, for everybody who's been trying to drink noni juice and Dick Gregory and take some extra vitamin C and vitamin D, all that's great. That's not going to keep you from getting COVID. So the technical name for COVID-19, remember you first heard it called the novel coronavirus? Novel. That means it's new. That means the human species has never had to deal with it. And because the human species has never had to deal with it, not one person on the planet has the antibodies to resist it. So if you come in contact with it, you're going to get it. Now, and the problem is you can't tell how your body is going to react to COVID. My grandmother had COVID at 90. When she went to the hospital by herself for 2 weeks, they checked her records. The last time she was in the hospital was when she had my father. So thankfully, after 2 weeks, she was able to come out. Many did not. One of my classmates, half her age, did not come out. They're members of my church. His wife and daughters dropped him off at Anne Arundel Medical Hospital. That was the last time they saw him. So age, how in shape you are, none of that protects you. All right? So your options, are y'all ready for your options? Are you ready for your options? You take the vaccine or you get the virus. That's it. There's no C. It's A or B. All right? This is a happy bunch. This is a happy topic. Breathe. It's going to be all right. All right. It's all kinds of sunshine today. We don't know how long, we don't know the long, this is one of my favorites. We don't know the long-term side effects. Well, that's true because, it just came out. What we do know is that vaccines for decades have, anybody have a case of smallpox lately? Yellow fever? Polio? Tuberculosis? Why not? Vaccines, right? Now, here's the question. When did you get vaccinated for TB? 30, 40, 50 years ago? Here's my question. Do you believe science has gotten better or worse in 50 years? So if a TB vaccine didn't kill people 50 years ago, why would we think that the COVID vaccine gonna start killing folks now? Right? So what's happening is the same way that there are tens of millions of Americans who you can't convince the election wasn't stolen. Now, before you judge them, you got some cousins right now. I ain't taking it. Right? Same, because it's misinformation. You literally don't recognize that when we go online, there's a movie I want you to check out. It's called The Social Dilemma on Netflix. The Social Dilemma. If you don't have a Netflix account, make your grandchildren play it for you. Social Dilemma, right? It shows how the internet and social media works. And here's a real quick, it's gonna mess you up. It messed me up. When you go online, if you go to Wikipedia and you put in tree, and I put in tree in Wikipedia, both of us will get the same answer. If you go to Google and put in tree, and I go to Google and put in tree, we will get different results. Because Google is powered by an algorithm that determines what it wants to show me based on my past history. So based on what I've Googled in the past, what I've done in the past, it determines what I'm going to be most interested in seeing. So when you listen to these Trumpers and you say, how can people be so stupid? It's because they literally don't know what you know. Because the algorithm keeps feeding them more of what they've shown they're open to. And because you don't watch Fox News, you watch CNN, it keeps feeding you what it knows you're most interested in. Are y'all with me? So as a consequence, people can't make a rational decision because they're no longer getting the truth. That was slide one. Let's move on. I'm going to rush. Well, I'm not going to rush. I'm going to try to go through this rather quickly. So what can we do? Obviously, safety protocols, wear your mask, with double mask, wash your hands, stay away from folk. Y'all know that. Something else, education. If we are going to beat this, it's going to take everybody who doesn't go to your church taking this vaccine. All right? Because you can't just take care of your house. Lord bless us for and no more. Because as long as your neighbor has it, you still can get it again. We don't know how long these vaccines are going to hold. We don't know if we're going to get them again next year. We don't know. So until we get to herd immunity where it literally has no place else to go, that's why you have a vested interest in making sure all your cousins and them take the vaccine. All right? And watch this. This is why you got to love God. God said, and y'all not going to just take care of your country, because as long as it's in other countries and we flying back and forth, y'all still vulnerable. Let me just put a pause in here and say, if you can't preach during times like these, I don't know what's going to take. I mean, if you can't make the argument about how, all people are the same and how all of us are frail and fragile and in need of a Savior, in need of grace, if you can't preach now, it's conversations. There's a website you'll see later on reference called the Black Coalition Against COVID, and you'll see the Vimeo site, and you all can get in touch with me. We are happy to conduct town halls, virtual town halls, because what we've discovered is people have their questions, and they're always the same. The questions I showed you, they're always the same questions. But when people can get out of the social media space and stop listening to people at the barbershop and the beauty salon and just sit with people that they respect and trust, it makes a difference. Right? So I've had members, I had a member who hit me up online. She said, Rev, my mother is in a nursing home. Her name is on the list to get the vaccine, but I don't know if I should let her get it. So I had another town hall going the next day, so I didn't respond. I waited for the town hall, and I asked the question. Anybody know Pastor Ray Hammond up at Bethel in Boston? Bethel, I mean. Pastor Ray Hammond, he's a medical physician. His wife is a medical physician, both Harvard trained. And they founded this church years ago, wonderful church. They also lead the 10-Point Coalition up there. He was on. So I read her question to him. He looked directly at the camera and said, I really want to encourage you to have your mother take the vaccine. She's in a nursing home. She is in the most vulnerable place, and the only protection she has is taking the vaccine. She hit me up the next day online. She said, Rev, thanks so much for the town hall. I heard what the pastor said. I'm going to take the vaccine. Now, what's interesting, Kevin, is she said, she didn't say, I heard what the doctor said. He's a medical doctor from Harvard. But she said, I heard what the pastor said. So never before has your voice been more valuable than right now. Because now we're not just saving souls, we're also saving lives. All right? So education, all of us have to do that. Testing, one of the reasons that African Americans are dying so much is because by the time we go in to the hospital, oftentimes the virus has advanced to the point where they can't do anything because we're not getting tested as often or as frequently. All right? So it's vital, especially for those who are not in a major metropolitan city with a whole bunch of medical facilities, that you set up testing for your community. All right? There you can go to the Black Coalition Against COVID, get information about that. Something else. Now, as y'all know, again, this is, first of all, this is Georgia. And so if anybody has a legitimate reason to be suspicious about your local government, y'all do. I don't know what the heck y'all doing down there. I mean, they just bold with it. They just purge y'all from the rolls and shut stuff down. I mean, it's like 1968, some of these spots. So again, a grateful nation thanks you all, because y'all dealing with all kinds of foolishness and chicanery. So because everybody knows that, how likely do you think that your cousins are trying to go to a government facility to get a vaccine? Right? So the same way that we got out the vote, we need to get out the vaccine. the same means that we use? Because we all rallied. I mean, I don't honestly, I was having a conversation about this the other day. I don't know that we could have done in Maryland what y'all did down here. Because y'all did organize. Y'all got it together. That same kind of effort, in fact, greater amount of effort is going to be necessary if we're going to beat this. All right? So I need y'all to rev up all the machine that you just used to get Raphael in and use that to get this vaccine in. All right? One of the ways we do that is through referral. So there's a lot of folks who don't know how to sign up for the vaccine online. So this is when you need to have all your kids and grandkids and nieces and nephews to check with all of their elders and make sure that they're helping them to sign up. All right? And even what a lot of what's happening in Maryland now is a lot of the hospitals are asking churches to refer people to them. So even if you can't host a vaccination site in your church, you at least can help folks get to where they need to go. And you're not asking people for their vital information. You're just making the connection between them and the medical facility. So we want to do that. Here's really important, distribution advocacy. So y'all heard the sister from the CDC. She said, we're creating the vaccines. We're getting the vaccines to who? The state. Your governor is deciding who gets the vaccines. Y'all's governor, that guy. Do you feel better? I don't even live here and I don't, right? So if you all are going to get the vaccines to where you need it in your communities, that means you're going to have to engage your local and county and state officials and let them know we're not playing with you. We're not doing this. Give us our due. All right? So you need, and because, somebody said, well, we need community-based organizations to help us. I said, community-based organizations? You mean churches? Because the only thing we got is liquor stores and churches. Unless we're going to start vaccinating folks in liquor stores, you talking about us. Come on, y'all. I know I ain't lied yet. I know that's the truth, right? So if we're going to have the impact, it's falling on us. And you all are already known. You already know the mayor. You already know the county folk. You got the contacts of the state. You need to start working the system to make sure that because as long as you're not checking, y'all know exactly where all those vaccines are going, to all them red counties. And I've already heard that they actually have a backup in a number of those red counties because they have more than they need. All right. So you have a role in advocacy. Again, we talked about registration, and ultimately, we definitely going to need churches to serve as vaccination sites where you're not putting any vaccines in arms, but you are going to partner with local pharmacies, local medical facilities, have them bring their people in and vaccinate. You help folks get registered and sign up and all that kind of stuff. And there is money we're working on right now, trying to get money from the CDC, from FEMA. We want to try to get it granted directly to the A.M.E. church so they can be distributed, and it's an easy process. Each church trying to make an application ain't going to work. So we can have basically a per diem where based on the number of persons you're going to house, the amount of square feet, how much security, cleaning, all that staff you need, that you can have those costs deferred. So I'm working with the Black Coalition on against COVID. We're literally talking with the leadership of the CDC. We're talking with several members of Biden's task force to try to make that happen. It's DC, it's politics, but we're gonna get that done. All right. Let me move on. I'm almost done. 2 more slides. My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. So I wanted to put on this. Can we make that whole put that whole slide up? There we go. So these are the links that I was referring you to, and again, it's already on your phone if you texted it. The first one again are those videos that with Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett also have Dr. Leon McDougall, who's president of the National Medical Association. I also have President Wayne Frederick, who is the president of Howard University, also is a practicing surgeon. They're all on that, as well as a member of mine who is with a large pharmaceutical association. So you get a real good sense of how the stuff works. You can download it. You can put it, since we're all virtual anyway, you can just drop that in your virtual service. So all your members see it. You put it on your social media. I think there's about 5 or 6 videos. I think 5 out of the 6 are only 2 minutes, because you know everybody has ADD now, including us. So it's not going to take a long time, but it gets at a lot of those myths. All right. Again, made reference to the Black Coalition Against COVID. A lot of great information there. The CDC, who you just heard from. And then that last one is the state of Georgia's vaccination plan. If you don't look at anything else, please look at that. Understand that, because that's their game plan to keep you out of it. All right? So you need to understand it. And given, listen, I can't say it enough, I am not a physician. I just play one on TV. No, I'm not a physician. I did not go to medical school, but I've learned how to sit and listen to people who know what they're talking about. So everybody has a doctor in your church or a doctor you're connected to, scientist that understands all this stuff and can help you to translate this to our community. But I really want to encourage you to check out the State of Georgia Vaccination Plan. All right, next slide should be about it. Vaccination Administration Site Consideration. So if you're considering, and I hope that you really are, considering making your church a vaccination site, here are some things for you to consider. First, again, find somebody that will serve as your health care advisor, somebody who understands this, that you trust, so that you understand what's being discussed and what's going on. Partner with the local health care, I almost said hair care, healthcare provider. We've got plenty of hair care providers. Healthcare providers, again, it may be your local hospital, your local clinic, your local pharmacy. What's interesting is up in Maryland, the pharmacies are now looking for churches, because think about it, pharmacies were not designed to vaccinate tens of thousands of people. They were designed to hold as much merchandise as possible, right? And which would you rather go into to get a vaccination? You won't be sitting up in the middle of aisle 10, right? Or would you prefer to be, at the church? And because you got to wait 15 to 30 minutes after you get your vaccination to make sure you don't have any, immediate side effects, right? So which would you prefer, right? So want you to partner with the local healthcare provider. Many times they may ask you to help identify healthcare workers if there's a shortage. All of us have nurses in our churches that can be helpful, so be ready to do that. Again, help to be ready to refer people and to register people, so to refer them to the hospital if the hospital has the capacity to vaccinate them, or to register them if they don't have the ability to navigate the registration process. Check with your insurance provider. Many of us have been doing, healthcare stuff for years, so it really shouldn't be a big deal. But check with your insurance provider. Again, there will be federal funding that's coming. There also is always state funding. Y'all know we pay for what we want to pay for, and we do what we want to do. So make sure that you're not bashful, but like everything else, make sure that you are a good steward, because money comes, but there always is an investigation afterwards. All right. Consider all of your costs: cleaning, security, staffing, utilities, all associated costs with what it will require for you to operate. Because again, there are 330 million people in this country. And the Pfizer vaccine, the Moderna vaccine, the Novavax vaccine, all of those are 2-dose vaccines. So that means people have to show up twice, which means there's going to be a long campaign. So you need to be built for the long haul. Let me just pause real quick and say something about the different vaccines. Now, I have already gotten my second dose, as I shared with y'all last night, because I participated at the Howard University Novavax trial. So that's another company that has another vaccine that's coming out, and it's clinic stage 3, which means that they're now testing it out on people. So I raised my hand, or I raised up my sleeve and said, y'all hit me, right? Because I wanted African Americans to know that when Novavax comes out, that black folks were included in the trial. I didn't die, you won't either, right? So again, if we're all about us, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because then we say, well, look, wasn't enough black folks in the trial? Well, that's because black folks wouldn't sign up. You can't have your cake and eat it too, right? Let me warn you about another challenge you're going to have. You all know that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is now going for emergency approval. Now, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine of efficacy rate is in the 70s. The Pfizer and Moderna is in the 90s. So, of course, everybody says, I want the Pfizer, I want the Moderna. And the medical experts are saying, take whatever they give you. Why? Because generally, 70% for vaccines is considered to be absolutely outstanding. You don't know that flu vaccine y'all get every year? That's 40 to 50%. And by the way, do you know who made the flu vaccine you took? No. Am I right about it? Can I get a witness? Just got happy on. My point is, you know, sometimes when we get options, we make stuff harder than it has to be. Here's the bottom line. So the Novavax vaccine, the one that I took, I think the efficacy rate is in the 80s. I didn't say, well, if it's in the 80s, I'm holding out for the Moderna. No, give me what you got. Now, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, while it is in the 70s, the great part is it's only one dose. Now, can we just talk frank for a minute? Can we just keep it real for a minute? Y'all know that some of your cousins, it's going to take the Lord, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost to get them in for one. Come on, can we just talk it? Right? Trying to get them back, within a certain period of time to get the second one? Or maybe not here in Georgia, but, you know, my people. So while we, y'all hear what I'm saying? So because I promise you, as soon as the Johnson & Johnson comes out, and then what's going to happen is, it's already starting to happen. So Baltimore, the mayor of Baltimore, young brother, said, we've ordered all these Johnson & Johnson vaccines, right? And so everybody, why can't we get the good stuff? Well, hold on. You didn't want the good stuff 3 weeks ago. Now, mind you, white folks have been figuring out how to cut the line since COVID started. Are y'all okay? I talk about white folk? Okay. Because an article came out about how the Wall Street Journal reported that there are all these Wall Street stockbrokers who were trying to be designated as essential workers so they could be included in the first group. They're literally paying people to try to cut the line, and we don't want to get in line. And then when we do want to get in line, we want to be at the front of the line for the best stuff, which we just decided we wanted last week. I'm not saying, I'm saying it in a facetious way. I get it again, Tuskegee. I get it. You don't want them cutting on you. I get all that. But you can't have your cake and eat it too. That's all I'm saying. If we know that our best chance to get our whole community vaccinated is with whatever vaccine is available, especially if it's a one-dose vaccine, y'all are at least my age. Do y'all remember MASH? Colonel Potter and them? Y'all remember the first time, I think it was Honeycutt, when he first started working there, he was trying to do everything by the book, like it was, and they had said, listen, brother, this is MASH. We in the middle of a war. We trying to save lives. So it may not be the prettiest stitch, but don't worry about it. He'll be glad to have an ugly stitch if he's still alive, right? So this ain't ER, this is MASH. I promise you'll never have another vaccination presentation like this. All right, let me get out of here. Give get back to my slides. Indoor, outdoor. So yeah, so when your healthcare provider partner comes and evaluates your church, they may decide, and especially down here because it's warmer, that you all can do it outside, which is a lot easier, a lot cleaner. You have to worry about a whole lot of folks coming in your church and all that kind of stuff. So be open to that option. And then finally, you're going to need to sign a memorandum of understanding with them to identify what they're responsible for, what you're responsible for, who's covering what. Make sure that your attorney just looks that over so that the church doesn't have any exposure in terms of liability. I'll give you my last slide, and I'll be through. Now is the time. The kingdom of God is at hand. Repent and believe in the good news. I believe never before has that scripture been more relevant than right now. I tried to argue with you last night that I believe this is the greatest time to be in the kingdom of God. This is the greatest time to offer the kingdom of God, right? Folks are considering their mortality who thought they were going to live forever, right? There's a whole lot of stuff you ain't got to talk about right now because it's obvious, right? Government's falling down, economy's falling down, right? Like if you can't, and you know, it's interesting, a lot of people, you listen to these millennials, well, you know, we want to see the work that the church is doing before we support and before we give. That ain't true. If the blood don't get you, nothing else will. Right? But now the church gets to be what it was supposed to be. Go outside the walls. We're feeding folks. Now we get to vaccinate folks. We get to save lives, right? So this is a great time to be in the kingdom. My wife and I were featured on our local television 3-minute feature on us and the work we're doing at the church around vaccinations. I was on the phone with ABC yesterday. They're doing a thing for Nightline. CBS is, now mind you, I've been preaching for over 25 years. Ain't nobody called me. I thought I was doing a fairly good job. I heard Bishop J.D. Ellis say, I'm not the best preacher in the world. I'm not the worst either. I'm somewhere in between. Ain't nobody called me from no ABC. The work that we're doing is bringing us into new spaces, right? And so if you simply start local and do the work, you will see the impact, everything you've been trying to do and been frustrated about your ministry, God is now serving it up to you on a platter. Behold, I do a new thing. What's the next line? Do you not perceive it? Do you recognize the opportunity that I'm putting before you right now? All right. That's all I was trying to argue with that article that Bishop made reference to, Never Waste a Crisis. You can get that on Outreach magazine. It's basically what Winston Churchill said at the beginning of World War II, that in times when everything is regular, stuff moves slow. I'm going to give y'all a big phrase. Disequilibrium, acute disequilibrium theory. That's a fancy way for saying never waste a crisis. When stuff is at equilibrium, when everything is regular, stuff moves slow. You got to check with the board. You got to go to the official board. You got to check with the stewards and the trustees. And then you got to check with Miss Mamie, who ain't on nobody's board but controls the church. Miss Mamie said no, it ain't going nowhere, right? But guess what? In a crisis, ain't nobody checking for Miss Mamie. Which means whatever it is you trying to get done, brother pastor, sister pastor, this is your best chance. Go big or go home. Because when we get back, Miss Mamie coming back in charge. I can't get no help down here. Right? Come on, tell the truth. You've gotten away with more stuff in the last 8 months, 9 months. Yeah, I just checked with the committee. Who's the committee? Me? I looked in the mirror and we decided what we were going to do. Right? So you have an opportunity now to do, now use it wisely. Don't act the fool, because Miss Mamie is coming back. But you have enough time to make enough change that if it's working, what's Miss Mamie gonna say? Right? So I hope nobody's name is Mamie in here, and if it is, I did not mean to offend you or your mama. It's just the first thing that came to my mind. All right. So I'm done now. I think that's it. That's my presentation. Are there any comments, questions, condolences, commendations, consolations? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Did it come through? For nobody? It did for some, not for others? Okay. So
When this is over, everybody go see Presiding Elder Ingram, and she'll do it for you. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor.
well played, Bishop. Yes. Other comments? Yes, sir. First of all, I want to thank you for bless you, sir.
Yeah, I'm gonna call on them in a minute.
Bless you.
All right.
Vimeo? The vaccine, the patent. I don't know. She has 5 of the 6 of them. I don't know which one. Yeah.
She's one of us. She's an African American female. She's a woman. She does an excellent job with that.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Bless you.
Appreciate all the hard work you do.
Appreciate it.
And how you're doing a great job of blazing the trail.
Bless you.
During the season.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Doc. Appreciate you, man. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Also want to comment on tremendous job. Thank you so much. But I want to know what arrangement did you make technologically speaking with respect to the texting?
Yeah, it's some program. I don't know if you know Reverend Russ. He's he runs my ministries. He does all the tech stuff. I don't know the name of it. I hit him this morning at 7 o'clock. Now, the crazy part is I hit him at 7 o'clock. At 7:05, it was done. Like he literally just went someplace, uploaded it. So just hit me up. Hit me up. I'll connect you. Matter of fact, don't hit me up. His name is Reverend Russell St. Bernard. Because you hit me up, I'll be in the air. Russell, hit him on Facebook or on Instagram, Reverend Russell St. Bernard. Take that number down, name down, because anything you want to ask me, all I'm going to do is give it to Russ. To cut out the middleman. Yeah.
One last question. Any other questions for Dr. Watley?
Any more questions? Comments? Yes, ma'am. Text the word leadership to 31. Oh, for the book, Ignite 2020. The numbers 2020. Ignite. Don't play it, just text it.
And if you play it, remember what the Lord says, all things come of all right? Let's give Dr. Watley a hand. Thank him for a wonderful sermon last night and for a wonderful presentation, and I hope that we heard what he said. I hope we heard what he said. Now we've got to do 2 things real quick. First of all, Dr. Bernard Clark, you want to talk about what's going to be happening at St. Philip? All right.
To Bishop Reginald Jackson and to each and every one of you who make up this congregation on this morning, we're so glad to be in front of you, and we certainly thank and praise God for all he has done for us. We are so glad to introduce to you, we have Mr. Adam Walker. Would you come, please, from Candler General Hospital? I want to ask Dr. Haithco and Dr. Prater, will you come forward also? We have an initiative, if you will, Dr. Bishop, that Candler has really been working with us on, and it really stands to facilitate and to be an example of what Reverend Watley has talked about all morning. So I want to present to you, of course, Mr. Walker.
Morning.
Sorry, there we go.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. It is a real privilege to be here with all of you this morning. We are very fortunate to be this area's only faith-based health provider. So, like we have heard this morning, we have partnered with our area churches, and we are offering a COVID vaccination to a select few. I think we're doing 5 churches to begin with, and these are our fantastic partners here. Very excited about this work, and I'm going to pass this over so you can hear a little more about what we're doing at the individual churches.
Good morning. We are planning to have vaccines given at St. Philip Monumental on Wednesday.
Oh, safe journey, Dr. Watley.
On Wednesday of next week. We started earlier this week polling our congregations and those are in our community, our church communities, to submit that information for 65, those who are 65 and older and who provide are caregivers. And so that will take place on next week, Wednesday, at St. Philip Monumental.
All right, thank you. And I just wanted to share what we have done is organized with the local hospital, St. Joseph Candler, and we met with them to talk about how we can get the vaccines into the underserved communities. African Americans and the Hispanic communities are the least served communities because many of us are concerned about the trust value. So when we sat around and talked about it, we put together a plan on how we can get it out to those communities that are less served. What we decided to do is to target 5 churches in this community, and we went from the east, west, north, south, and central. And what we did a hub and spoke plan, and that was the churches were strategically identified, and then the churches that are around those churches are to get their members out who want to get the vaccine, and we in turn talk to them about the safety and the trust values. Then we coordinated the times with the hub church. So that, for example, from 10 to 11 would be St. Philip Monumental. From 11 to 12 would be St. Philip. From 1 to 2, each church, depending on how many persons you get, and Taylor Chapel, that's right, depending on how many persons each church gets, you would pre-schedule them so that you don't waste your vaccine. And that's very important. Now, one of the challenges we're having is, and that's what Dr. Watley brought up, and some of the ministers were talking about this, you need to make sure if you're having it at your church that, number one, you have security. Number two, you make sure that their sanitization is taken care of before, during, and after. And to make sure that you work with medical professionals to help you cover those situations that you're going to be facing. And so I think it's wonderful, and Dr. Clark on this coming Wednesday is going to be one of the hub churches on Wednesday. And so if you're in the Savannah area, or if you want to talk with us on how we got that set up, and I want to thank St. Joseph Candler for working with us and making that available.
Also, we'd like to say that we have experienced individuals who say that if it's at the church, we're coming. We weren't going anywhere else. And so it does work. And we're doing appointments as I speak. If you see me on my phone, we're working out appointments. And it's safe to say that as of right now, we have over 100 AMEs in the area that are signed up to get that vaccine on this coming Wednesday.
That's fantastic. I mean, the churches are really the place where people know they can go and trust the good work of God that's being done. And so we know that we have partnered with the right people to get Jesus' healing mission accomplished. So thank you all for having us today.
All right, thank you so much. Give them a hand. And I want to thank the hospital and these churches for working together. Now, my brothers and sisters, Brothers, let me say this, the last 24 hours have been a very difficult time for me. The last 24 hours have been a challenging time. We had arranged for vaccinations to be held today and tomorrow here at St. James. And over the last 24 hours, well, I shouldn't say last 48 hours, I got a call Thursday with a bombshell saying that they didn't have any vaccines. They had run out. They didn't have any vaccines. And so I was on a call with folk from the Department of Health, and we had a little prayer and come to Jesus gathering, and got a call back that we were able to get 400 vaccines. I said, all right, that we'll start there, because we started at 4,000. We started at 4,000. And the problem is all the states across the country have been running short of vaccines. Let me give y'all some good news. Trump is gone. I say that's good news because Trump and them led us to believe that we had all these vaccines were going to be available and all this kind of stuff, and everybody running out of vaccines. Then, y'all know I'm from Delaware. President Biden from Delaware comes in, and they've already begun the process of arranging to get more vaccines produced, and the number of vaccines coming to each state beginning this week are supposed to increase. But I had reached out with MCI Diagnostic Center, Texas and Oklahoma, and they're the only, wasn't going to say the largest, but they're the only black diagnostic center in the country. They have contracts with the federal government in all 50 states. And they were going to come and do the vaccinations and all. And the founder of MCI Diagnostic Center, Dr. Paynes, flew in yesterday. We were all set to do these vaccinations, then we found out that the state did not get the registration site up on the Department of Health website, so folk are not able to register. And then we ran into a situation where the head of the Georgia Medical Society had some reservations because of stuff, and so we just were not able to do the vaccinations today, for which I'm extremely frustrated. I got up this morning, got on my knees, and I said, Lord, please forgive me, but I got to get this out of my system. I had to say a few words in tongues this morning. And the Lord said, I understand. All right? Because we went through a lot of work. And then while I was sitting here presiding this morning, they came and sent me a message that the vaccines were on the way here. And I said, so now I'm going to have vaccines and ain't got no way to get them anyway. It's just been a frustrating day. But I'm delighted because what we are in the process of arranging, and we're going to finalize this and get that as soon as possible. We're going to do vaccinations in each of the 6 annual conferences. Let me say this. First of all, I want y'all in Savannah to take advantage of what's going to be happening next week. I think next Wednesday to St. Philip. If you're 65 and over, you need to get to St. Philip to get your vaccination. If you're under 65, but you know somebody 65 and over, and they need a caregiver, then you volunteer. You can get the vaccine yourself. Now, don't stop caring for them after you get the vaccine. All right? Please don't do that, all right? But we're going to have the vaccinations in each of the annual conferences. But I am delighted to have the founder of MCI Diagnostic Center who flew in, was going to handle this for us personally herself. And I just think it's awesome. A doctor in her own right. And I just want her to come and greet us and say a word. Dr. Payne, will you please come and greet us? Give her a big hand.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you, guys, and we are so delighted to be here. And of course, Bishop Jackson, he did the most. We fought this fight because here in this country, we have been on the ground since day one. MCI is the largest African-American-owned laboratory in the country. We have some of the biggest contracts in the country, and we operate in all 50 states. But because of his efforts, his tireless efforts of trying to get this vaccine for this community and for the state of Georgia, I personally came in. This vaccine clinic was all set to go, but I will tell you, it's just a stone in the road, because what we are doing now is much bigger and the process is much bigger, and we will be so much more successful because we are in three actual states. We have laboratories, and because of the work that the bishop did, we were successful in the state of Georgia. And so my commitment is for the underserved so that we can live. And I would tell you, as the pastor said prior to me getting here, you know, this pandemic has done something unbelievable. And you all, just about everyone in here, if you are a minister, a bishop, you all are first in line. They have not said that, but because of the amount of losses that we have had in this nation, it has put all of you as first responders in your health. So you are able to stand in that line because you are delivering eulogies and services, and you have put your life on the line. So I wanted you all to know that you get to stand in that line for your vaccine. I have had my vaccine, and I believe that me and my husband, we have spent a lot of money trying to get here, to get to you guys, because I think that the best way to save people of color and the underserved is this house. Because if this house does not come back, we will not save the people of color. So I have spent so much tireless energy and money so that I am here to have these conversations, because I understand that our people of color listen to this guy right here, this female right here. And if you all are not back in this church to be able to tell us to save our lives, we're not going to be saved. To me, this is a level of genocide that we have never seen before. So you must come back. So I've done a couple test pilots, and I won't make this long. We've done test pilots in the state of Texas. We have a couple mega churches that I have gotten licenses for, CLIAs. And so when you want to set your members in the church, I have empowered several churches with the health ministries to collect, because we won't get everyone. We're not even scheduled to get half of the country. So we've got until June or July. But if you want members to sit back in your church, we did a test pilot with a church in Dallas. I put rapid technology in that church. I put PCRs in that church. And everyone that comes in that church on Sunday is COVID-free. So that is the first church that we've done as a test. I've got 3 other ones going. If any of you guys are having health ministries, you want to bring your churches back, we can support on that. If I can bring 178,000 kids back for Job Corps, we have every Job Corps in the nation. And I do all of their testing. And if I can bring them back, I can bring your churches back. Because the best way to save us, thank you, the best way to save us is the people sitting in this audience. And until we understand that your leadership and guidance, the community's listening to what you do. If you don't take the vaccine, Johnson & Johnson is good. It's protein-based. A lot of people don't know that part of it. Any vaccine that you can stand in that line for, you need to stand in that line, because the affluent is coming to your neighborhoods and taking your shots. So while we standing on the line going like, we're gonna help them in and guide them in and let them in, and we're gonna take the next best one, the next best one might be for your life and the life of your mother or the life of your child. Because see, now this was 65. We down to the teens now, right? We losing kids. So everyone, now I'll tell a little joke here. My husband is here with me, and my husband is the healthiest guy I know, Bishop. Just epitome of the health. I think he takes 200 vitamins a day, every day. Now, when he exercises 5 times a day. Lord, I get tired of looking at him. I tell God I don't need to do anything because he do enough for both of us, right? But he decided, that because of his makeup that he wouldn't take the test. He wouldn't take the vaccine. I said, we've seen too much on this journey. You have to take it. No matter what you do, we don't know what's under here. We don't know what's in here, that if that virus gets here, we have no idea how that's going to affect us. You might be the healthiest person, but this tells you a different story. So I told my husband something real simple, and I like to do jokes. I said, you know what? You don't have to take the vaccine, but I'm going to go take it. But then I'm going to see you somewhere else because you're going to have to get a new wife because I'm divorcing you. And my son is the same way as my husband. They exercise and they take out. And I said, you're going to have to get a new mommy, but you're going to also have to get a new job because the money that you make, I pay you, and I'm going to fire you. And I'm going to get a new husband. So what happened? Everybody got the vaccine in my house, right? So that's what you all need to remember. If you are in that line first, everybody in your house will stand in line and follow your leadership and your direction. I thank you. And my husband will be almost 66. So he is very healthy. I would have him stand, but he's already undone. Please, Mr. Neighbor, stand. He is the CEO of our company. I look forward to working with each and every one of you all, and we will see you on the journey because we will be at all of your sites in which the bishop asked us, request us. Thank you all.
All right, give her a hand. Dr. Neighbors, happy to have you with us today, and happy to have Sister Denise Mitchum with us today. All right. Now, my brother and my sisters, we'll be getting you the dates when in each conference. One of the things I did not want was for everybody to have to feel they had to drive all the way to Savannah to get your vaccine. So that's why we wanted to arrange it in every conference. The other thing is we would not be allowed just to have vaccines for A.M.Es. We have to open it up to everybody, but we were going to try to make a special designation of a day for A.M.Es, but you do have to register. It's my hope that if we can get to the point that President Biden wants to do of increasing the number of vaccinations daily, it's my hope that when we get ready to do the vaccinations in each conference, that we will no longer be dealing with these categories of 65 and over and all that, because really we need to get as many people vaccinated in this country as soon as possible. It's an embarrassment that there are other nations around the world who are doing a better job of vaccinating their populations than the United States. And so we want to do all that we can to see that as many of our people, and especially blacks, because we are disproportionately affected by the virus. Now we're being disproportionately affected by how they are spreading out the vaccines. And so my thing is, and I'm supposed to meet with the governor next week. They called me this morning. I'm going to tell the governor, I don't know why all those vaccines went to Northwest Georgia when 60% of Georgia's population lives in the Atlanta metropolitan area. I'm not sure why they've gotten so few. Northwest Georgia, which is predominantly red and Republican, got so many vaccine. So, but we'll have a little come to Jesus gathering on that, and we'll understand it better by and by. All right? Let us get ready to prepare for our midday service. Dr. John Green, the Dean of Turner Theological Seminary, is going to be the preacher. Who's the worship leader? All right, come on down there. Have those on the program. Let's get ready. Yes, sir, Reverend Logan. Sure, you may. See, I'm not going to be partial. I'm also not going to disagree with you either. I want you to be prophetic. All right. All right, and let me say this while we're getting ready for the noonday service. Let me say this. I was going to take part of this morning, but let me say I am so proud. I am so absolutely proud of the 6th District A.M.E. Church. I don't know what to do. I want you to know your bishop is extremely proud. We put together Operation Voter Turnout, and I want to thank the presiding elders and the pastors and lay members, all the folk who registered, and all the folk who went to vote. And we encourage our people to register and vote early. And Sister Brown, please stop messing with Reverend Drains, please. He's trying to listen to the bishop. And so, I want you to know you all turned out to vote, and you all stunned the country by turning Georgia blue. And then we came to the runoff election, and people did not expect that blacks would turn out in as large a numbers as for the runoff as we did in the general election in November. And they really did not expect the election to turn out the way it did. So they were absolutely stunned. And I want you to know I'm so proud because blacks across, you know, when I came to Georgia in 2016, and you all heard me say it, that I was angry with blacks in Georgia. Because in 2016, blacks did not turn out to vote. But I want you to know I'm not no ways angry with blacks no more in Georgia. I mean, if I had some money, I'd buy all of y'all ice cream cone. Because in the runoff, you all turned out in record numbers. And Georgia made extraordinary history. We elected the first black, and we elected the first Jew to the United States Senate from Georgia. And so I am extremely proud, and I want you to know your bishop is extremely proud of what you've done, and Georgia is the talk of the nation. In fact, I think we redeemed the nation because those two got elected at just the right time. Can you imagine, as big a mess as we in now, can you imagine how it would be if the Republicans still controlled the Senate? So I think the Lord does work in a mysterious way, his wonders to perform. And so I don't want the AMEs now, do not let down or do not give away the status you have in this state. Anybody who wants to be anything in Georgia knows now they have to come through the AME church. People wanting to run in 2022 have already started calling. Want to know if we could have a meeting with you. We want to discuss running for something. And I told them the only thing I'm running for is heaven, and I'm not ready to be elected just yet. All right? But please do not give up the status that the AME Church has in the state of Georgia. AMEs, you are in an awesome position in the state of Georgia. So I pray you do not let that position go. All right, let's get ready. Yes, sir, Dr. Walker. This is our member of the National Board of the NAACP, Dr. David Walker. Thank you, Dr. Walker. Thank you. All right, let us prepare for our midday service.